One quick correction I need to make. I just found out this week that they're calling it the seniors gathering at 55 plus. I told Nathan, I was like, I don't think you ask a 56-year-old if they consider themselves a senior. So I think I have a little clout around this place, so I'm going to change the name officially to like seasoned gathering. You like that better? Yes, okay, seasoned. Or the people that seem to have the most fun in life. Like, man, I talked to my parents. I was like, what do y'all do? Well, we wake up and I go play golf and your mom goes and gets a massage and we eat lunch and we hang out. I was like, that sounds amazing. So really awesome. Anyway, it's 55 plus. I'll be there. I'll be preaching. We'll get a Bible study, have some small group. Sean will be playing, singing some hymns. I did make a mistake at 9:30. I said we were going to have a potluck. Man, I stepped in that one big time. So we're not having a potluck. I was told it's from Costco. Yeah, okay, that's my response too. I was like, oh, okay. So we're gonna have food, but it's not gonna be a potluck. So you don't have to bring anything. We're gonna have it from Costco, but it's gonna be free food and to hang out 10 a.m. this Thursday. I would love for you to be there. Now, we are in the middle of a series on prayer, and I don't know about you, but I like my comfort zone and I like my routine. Like I've got my routines. When time I go to bed, I make the coffee at night so it's ready in the morning. I wake up at a certain time. I make my coffee a certain way. I have certain routines throughout the week, as I'm sure you do. I have certain comfort zones, things that I'm good at. That man, when I'm doing this thing, this activity, I'm comfortable. I'm not too stressed. I'm not too worried. It feels good. It's normal. However, this is true for me. I'm not sure if it's true for you. I find that if I stay in those comfort zones or those routines for too long, they become ruts that I eventually get stuck in. And I don't know how or when that happens, but if I do the same thing over and over again, what once was a nice routine now becomes a rut that I'm stuck in, and the deeper the rut, the more difficult it is to get out of. And so I find myself needing to do things to get out of those comfort zones, get out of those routines, to stretch and to grow myself. I find this in diet and exercise. Man, if I do the same exercise the same way, at the same time, the same gym over and over again, it's a law of diminishing returns. It was nice at first, but man, it just gets old after a while. Whenever Brianna puts me on a new diet, man, I do it for a couple of days and I get bored of it. I'm like, I need something different. And so I go back to my old ways. But to get stretched and to get grown. Brianna and I, whenever we go out on dates, we've got our favorite restaurants and our favorite things that we do. But if we do them over and over and over again, man, at some point we go, we've got to shake it up. We got to do something different. Routines are good, comfort zones are good. But for me, if I stay in them too long, they become ruts that I get stuck in. And it's the same for your prayer life, and it's the same for my prayer life. If you do the same thing over and over and over again, and instead of being a nice routine, it becomes a rut that we get stuck in. And a couple of weeks ago, I was taking Daniel and Kara through carpool line, elementary carpool line, and I do this every morning. It's my thing. It's what I do. And if you've ever been in elementary carpool line, it feels a little like Groundhog Day. It's the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And it's near the end of the school year, and what happens is we get in line, and I pray for them. I pray for Daniel and Kara, and I pray for their day. Well, a couple of weeks ago, I finished praying. I'm about to drop them off, and Kara, my little 7-year-old, she goes, hey, Dad, she goes, why do you pray the same prayer over and over again and never change it up? Now, it's 7:30 in the morning. I'm not feeling real pastorally or fatherly for that matter. And so I go, you know why? Because we go to the same school over and over again. That's why. Dropped her off. Now, it's amazing how God can use a 7-year-old little teeny tiny girl to convict you in your heart and your soul. Because I was driving, I was like, well, why do I say the same thing over and over? So, man, for the past several weeks, I've been trying to change it up. It was once a routine, then became a rut that I get stuck in. And I don't want you to be stuck in ruts. I want you to get out of your comfort zone. I want you to get out of your routine. I want you to be stretched and grown as an individual, as a husband, as a wife, as a family unit, as a boss, as a leader, as an employee, as a citizen of your community, and most importantly, as a follower of Jesus. I want you to be stretched and I want you to be grown, because when that happens, you develop and you grow in new areas and in new ways, and you become more the person that God wants you to be. And so today I'm going to give you 3 very specific prayers that I would want you to pray this week to get you out of your comfort zone, to get you out of your routine, that they're gonna stretch you, they're gonna grow you. Honestly, they're gonna make you squirm a little bit in your seat today, but that's okay. Because at the end of the day, if these prayers would become a part of your life, man, I think you could see God grow you and stretch you and bring you to new areas that you never even knew existed. If you got a Bible, grab it. Go to Matthew chapter 9. If you don't have a Bible, they will certainly put it up on the screen. Matthew chapter 9, and while you're turning there, these verses that we're going to look at, it's a prayer that Jesus told his disciples to pray, really cool prayer. But you need to understand that personally, these verses right here shaped the course of my upbringing. 30 years ago, these verses struck a nerve, a heartstring in my mom and dad's life, and they forever changed the course of our family direction. Because of these verses, man, they stepped outside of their comfort zone and what they knew and did something completely different. See, 30 years ago, my family and I, we were missionaries. We were living in Costa Rica. My dad read these verses. They began to stir something inside of he and my mom. And we were in the mission field, and because of these verses, we came back to the United States, and he planted a church that was very different than the church that he'd grown up in. These verses gave him something new in his heart and his mind. He goes, what if church could be different? And he started it in a La Quinta hotel conference room in May of 1990. And for the next 25 years, he pastored that church. And it was one of the most exciting, thrilling rides as being a part of that family and seeing that church grow. But it's because of these verses that begin to stir in my mom and dad's heart and mind that we stepped outside our comfort zone. I pray they do the same for you. Matthew chapter 9, verse 35, and here's what Matthew writes. Jesus traveled through all the towns and villages of that area, teaching in the synagogues and announcing the good news about the kingdom, and he healed every kind of disease and illness. So Jesus went about teaching and preaching in the different towns, villages, and synagogues. He didn't set up a little corner office and go, hey, come see me. He went around and he visited and he taught and he healed and he went to the synagogues. He went from village to village, town to town, doing something different, not with the same group of people. Look what happens, verse 36. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were confused and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. And he said to his disciples, the harvest is great, but the workers are few. In verse 38, here's his prayer. He says, so pray to the Lord who is in charge of the harvest and ask him to send more workers into his fields. Jesus is going around teaching and preaching in the different synagogues and towns and villages. And as he sees the human beings and he sees what they're going through on this earth through difficulty and struggle and oftentimes having more questions than answers, he had compassion on them. His heart broke for them. And then he calls his disciples and goes, listen, the harvest is great. The need is great, but the workers are few. He says, so pray to the Lord who's in charge of the harvest to send more workers into his fields. 3 prayers that I would love for you to pray this week to stretch you outside of your comfort zone. First one is found in verse 36. Verse 36 says, when he saw the crowds, the first prayer, Lord, please open my eyes. Lord, please open my eyes. When Jesus saw the crowds, he saw them. He saw the brokenness. He saw the hurting. He saw those that needed healed. He saw those that needed taught. Jesus saw the crowds. And just because you don't see the needs around you doesn't mean they don't still exist. It is super easy to put blinders on and I go to work or I go to school. I've got this group of friends. I go to this movie theater. I go to this grocery store. I go on these vacations and blinders on. But if you would just say, Lord, open my eyes. Lord, take the blinders off. Lord, let me see people in a new way that I've never seen before. Lord, bring people in my life that I never knew even existed. Lord, open my eyes to the needs around me. Lord, don't let me put blinders on. Lord, let me be sensitive. Don't let me just go through my routine. Don't let me just go through the motions. Lord, open my eyes. Bring new people in that I need to help. Bring new people in that I can be Jesus to. Lord, please open my eyes. A few weeks ago, I was sitting out there in our new little courtyard area in the bench. My kids were playing And this couple comes up to me and they said, do you remember us? I go, oh yeah. And they had come a couple of weeks earlier for the very first time here to Mountain Lake Church. And he said, I wanted you to know something, that after we talked, something happened. I was like, what's that? He said, do you know a couple named Bob and Stella? I was like, sure, I know Bob and Stella. He goes, well, let me tell you what happened. He said, a couple of weeks ago, he goes, you know that was our first time? I go, yeah, sure. He said, well, we came up and introduced ourselves to you and we started talking. He goes, and then you left. He said, and we were gathering our kids and we were walking right out this tunnel door right here. And he said, we were walking and he goes, Bob and Stella came up. They had overheard our conversation that was our very first time at the church, and they invited our entire family to lunch right then and there. He goes, so we went and we had an amazing time and we connected and we're food and fellowship. And he goes, man, this is our home church. And I called Bob and Stella that week. I said, you need to understand, that's what every pastor hopes happens. And when people are walking out that, hey, Bob and Stella, we're going to lunch like we do every Sunday, but man, there's a new person. Well, there's somebody right in our path. Lord, please open my eyes. Lord, please let me see the people around. Lord, please take off the blinders. I don't want to get so focused on my routine or on my comfort zone that I pass by the needs of the people. Lord, open my eyes to the people around me. Look at the second part of that same verse, verse 36. It says, when he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them. Second prayer is this: Lord, please soften my heart. Lord, please soften my heart. Jesus saw the crowds and he had compassion, or in other words, his heart broke. That word compassion, the original word, that means there's something stirring on the inside, like this gut feeling that it hurts, it aches, because man, he sees them, they're like sheep without a shepherd. They're lost, they're hopeless, they're broken, and Jesus' heart broke. Lord, please open my eyes to the people around me. Lord, please soften my heart. Lord, please give me compassion the way you had compassion. Now, what I love about this church is that when I meet you, so many of you, that you were like me. And the problem is that so many of you are like me. And what I mean by that is so many of you, you're like a brand new baseball glove. And here's what I mean by that. You're stiff and you're rigid naturally. And a baseball glove, a brand new one, and we bought one a few months ago from oldest, it's stiff and rigid, and it takes time, and you've got to work it and break it in and put glove oil on there and open it and break it in and hit it with the baseball. We even baked ours in the oven at 200 degrees just to soften it up. It takes work to soften it up. Many of you, you're like me in that you're just naturally going, well, it's easier just to put on a shell. Why? Because you've been hurt. Man, you've been burned. You've been lied to. You've had promises broken. And so when it comes to other human beings, it's easier just to be stiff and rigid and cold. Hear me very carefully. A compassionate heart is way more useful than a cold heart. A softened up baseball glove is way more useful than a stiff, rigid baseball glove. And I get it that it's risky, that it means putting yourself out there, but don't miss this. Jesus had compassion on human beings who just shortly later would be human beings that crucified him. And so, yeah, you might get hurt again. You might get disappointed again. They may let you down again, absolutely. But your compassion for them is not contingent upon them returning the favor. So, Lord, please soften my heart. Lord, let my heart break for the things that breaks your heart. Lord, please let me have that compassion. Lord, let me see the people. And Lord, let my heart be softened to the needs around me. And if your heart is still beating and you might have that outer edge, that outer shell, it is not too late for it to still be broken and softened and compassion to the people around you. Tuesday afternoon, I came home and Brianna, she goes, hey, I sold Daniel's bunk beds. And we shut down Daniel's Airbnb just like that. And so we put an end to that. She goes, I sold it. So, okay. And she sold it, I think, like on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, something like that. She goes, you got to disassemble it and you got to deliver it to them. I was like, what? And I go, why don't they come pick it up? She goes, do you want them coming to our house? I was like, I'll deliver it to them. And so we had to disassemble it. And I said, man, and she goes, you got to take the whole thing apart. And these bunk beds are super heavy. And so we unassemble everything. And Daniel and I carry it down our stairs, load it in my truck, and we drive over there. Now, If you've ever bought anything or sold anything off the internet, there are certain protocols that you follow. And you're just real leery. You're just not real, jovial with the people that you meet. That's just the way it works, all right? And so we showed up to this house. And, I put on my internet selling protocol face. I was like, hey, dude. It's okay. You got the cash? Yeah. You got the bed? I did. I got it. And so we made the exchange. Right? He gave me the cash, and there was the bed. Now, we pull up to his house. In his house, like the garage is on the first floor, and the front door was like up a set of stairs on the front level. It's kind of the way his house was built. And, again, when you come to selling things on the internet, I'm not a delivery man. So I'm going to put the bed right here in your front yard. How you get it up there, dude, that's on you. And so I said, I'm going to put the bed right here. He goes, oh, okay. He's like, well, I got to get it up the first set of stairs. I was like, yeah, you do. So I started unloading it. And he goes, well, I guess my wife and I can take it up there. Okay. Now, you ever have something in your mind and you have a plan and God goes, that's not what I want you to do. Okay, not just me. I had this grandiose plan and the Lord's like, no, that's not what I want you to do. I was like, Lord, I'm not sure if you know how Craigslist works or not, but we don't do this. And so I'm unloading this bunk bed out of there and putting it right there. And just the whole time, I'm just like, I don't want to take it upstairs. I don't want to take it upstairs. I was like, fine, I'll take it out. I'll take it up there for you. He's like, oh, great. He goes, actually, we have to go up to the second floor, so we have to go up 2 flights of stairs. I'm like, oh. He's like, but if you'll just take it up to the first floor, that'd be great. That'd be great. I was like, okay. So it's super heavy, and I'm walking up back, and I take it up, and I walk in the front door. And as I walk in the front door, I look to the right, and there's his wife and 4 kids aged 3 and under. Don't all me. Oh, yeah. I was like, oh, and they looked at me like, hey. And I was just like, let's keep going. It's like, oh, thank you so much. Yeah. Listen, you might be that stiff baseball glove just like me. But man, let God soften your heart. Let it break for something. Lord, please soften my heart. Lord, give me the compassion that you have. A compassionate heart is way more useful than a cold, jaded heart. Lord, open my eyes. Lord, let me take the blinders off. Lord, please soften my heart. And then the last one, look at verse 37. He said to his disciples, the harvest is great, but the workers are few. So pray to the Lord who is in charge of the harvest and ask him to send more workers into his fields. If you've grown up in church, we love praying this for other people. Lord, there are some missionaries needed in Africa. If you will raise up the missionaries, Lord, I will pray for them. Lord, they need volunteers in the nursery next weekend. Lord, I ask that you would just soften somebody else's heart to work with those babies. We love, Lord, there's some need in the fields. Lord, send somebody. Lord, raise up somebody. Lord, bring somebody up. But what if the person that God wants to put to work in his fields is you? The third prayer is this, is Lord, please put me to work. Lord, please put me to work. It's interesting. He talks about fields plural. Not just one field. It's not like, well, hey, this is the one area you can work. It's like, no. Maybe it's church. Maybe it's overseas. It might be your marriage. It might be your family. It might be your next door neighbor. It might be your kid's sports team or dance team or cheer team. It might be that person at work that you've been avoiding for forever. But there's a field that needs you. There's broken people that need you. There is a great harvest and the workers are few. And Jesus is going, my answer, the solution to that is you. Lord, please put me to work. And you're going, oh man, yeah, this is going to make you squirm a little bit because you're comfortable. You've got your routine. You just kind of go through the motions. You show up at church and maybe you do this, maybe you do that. And it's comfortable and it's great. But what if God wants you to do something else? What if he's asking you to take a step of faith that's outside of your comfort zone? What if you see somebody new and what if all of a sudden your heart begins to break for them? And what if all of a sudden God's going, now here's what I want you to do. Lord, please put me to work. Lord, please show me the field, and Lord, whatever it is, I will do. And you go, well, Chris, what if it's outside my comfort zone? That's a good thing. Well, what if it makes me nervous? That is okay. And what if I fall flat on my face? Here's what I wanted to tell you. You will never, ever regret obedience to God. You might be scared to death. You might be nervous, but you will never look back with regrets. You will never look back and go, man, I wish I didn't follow God in that area. You will never regret obedience to God. In fact, a step of faith with God is better than playing it safe with you. A step of faith with God is always, always better than playing it safe with you. But it's super easy and fun to play it safe. Why? Because we're comfortable. In a routine, we know we can control it. It's us, it's ours. But if God is asking you to step outside of your comfort zone, my question to you is, will you? Will you just sit back and go, man, Lord, please send somebody else. Let somebody else do that. Man, I got pulled out of my comfort zone 2 weeks ago. It's a Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, and I was hosting the FCA's annual banquet. FCA is Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I was hosting their annual banquet two Sundays ago. And they'd asked me, and I really like doing things like that. You give me a microphone and 400 or 500 people, that is my comfort zone. I like it, it's fun, I enjoy it. And so I was up there for 2 hours. They had dinner, a silent auction, they had a speaker. And so I was just hosting it, tell a few jokes here and there, make them laugh, keep it moving. It was a 2-hour event. It was near the end of this event. The last 10 minutes, and I'm thinking to myself, man, this has gone great. I've kept it on time. The crowd's engaged, no problem. This is great. There's about 10 minutes left, over 10 minutes left. And somebody is up there doing like a raffle or something. And so I'm just off to the side over here. And I see one of the board members comes up to me, FCA. He goes, hey, Chris, come here. So I walk over to him. I go, yeah. He goes, hey, we've got something else we need to auction. It's like, okay. He goes, it's a fishing trip, a fly fishing trip to Montana. It's like, okay, cool. He goes, we want to do a live auction with it. Cool. Who's going to do that live auction? You are, Chris. Oh, hang on one second. I have never, ever, ever done a live auction before in my life. And I don't know if you've ever gone from like comfortable to panicked like that, where you go from like, you ever been in a situation, maybe for you when you're up on stage, where like all of a sudden the back of your neck starts to sweat? You know what I'm talking about? Where it just turns red. That is happening to me up on stage. And my stage is, this is my comfort zone. It's my happy place. This is where God has wired me to do. But he's not wired me to do a live auction. And he goes, oh, by the way, we need to get $2,000 for this fishing trip. I was like, we couldn't have started with like a $25 Chili's gift card. Like I've never, ever done a live auction ever before. There's 400 or 500 people, and now I got to raise $2,000 for this fishing trip. He goes, yeah. And so they finish, and so I'm up there, and I'm having this mental wrestling match with the Lord going, I really don't want to do this, but I know I'm called to. And so I get up there, and I go, hey, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to close the deal, but we have a live auction for a fly fishing trip. And that was the response right there that I got. They're all staring at me. And so there is that moment going, okay, Lord, I'm by a step of faith. I did my very best live auctioneer voice that I could do. Would you like to hear it? Yes. You're not going to. I'll do it. Now, this is my third time to do it. So I did it at 9:30. I did the SCA banquet, but I need like a good microphone right here. So Jeff, go ahead and give me this guy right here. So, because an auctioneer has to have a voice just like this. They have to talk real to you like this. I know. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming here. And we've got a great fishing trip. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we got to get about $2,000 for this fishing trip. So soften your hearts, open up your pocketbooks, and here we go. I'll take $1,500, give it $1,500, I got $1,500, I need $1,800, I got $1,500, but $1,800, I see I got $1,800, I need $2,000, do that, I got $1,800, I need $2,000, I got $2,000, you got $2,000, going once, $2,000 going twice. Sold to the man on the front row, $2,000. That's the last time you'll ever see that. Scared to death. Sweat on the back of my neck. Never done that before. Now, My guess is when you go, Lord, please put me to work, he's going to go, I got a job for you. I got a field for you. I got an area. I've got something that's going to stretch you, but that is okay. It is okay to be stretched. It is okay to be grown. It's okay to be challenged. Lord, please open my eyes. Lord, please soften my heart. And Lord, please put me to work. Now, let me just say something to those of you in this room or watching online that you are married, that you're married. As a married couple, if you would pray these prayers, and as a married couple, if your eyes would be open to the same people, and your heart would be broken and softened for the same things, and you would get to work doing what God has called you to do, that will bring you closer together faster than the next vacation or social event ever will. As a married couple, if you find yourself going, well, we're kind of going, Lord, open our eyes, Lord, soften our hearts, and Lord, put us to work. And you'll be amazed at what it does for your marriage. Not just for you personally, but when God begins to stretch you together and soften your hearts together and put you to work outside of your comfort zone together, oh my goodness, your marriage takes on a whole new level. You will never, ever, ever regret obedience to God. Now, I'm going to throw out an idea, an opportunity that may be a field for you to work in. See if it piques your interest or not. The opportunity that we have, and they're out there in the lobby right now, is FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. We are massive fans of them here at this church. I'm a huge fan of them personally. I've seen it work in Texas and in Georgia and just seeing kids and coaches' lives changed. And they're one of our great strategic partners, and they're out there in the lobby. And I was talking to them this past week, and FCA, if you're not familiar with it, they get the gospel inside public high schools and middle schools. And so I'll be honest with you, if you can take the gospel, the good news of Jesus, to students inside the schools, I'm a fan. I'm like, man, whatever we can do to help, man, sign us up. And so they said, man, we just want people to be aware of what we do. And so FCA, just this past school year, here in Forsyth and Dawson County, they have these things called character talks. And so these character coaches come in and they talk for 5 minutes on integrity, perseverance, whatever, to the team. That's mandatory. And then there's an optional faith talk. And that's where these character coaches can come in and really share the good news of Jesus. And Jeff Gravett, who's the director of it, I go, hey, how many kids have sat in these? He said, just this school year alone, 2,500 kids have sat in the character talks, which are mandatory. And he goes, 1,000 of those kids have chosen the optional faith talk, which is about Jesus. It's just men and women that volunteer their time as character coaches to go in and go, man, I want to adopt the girls' softball team. I want to adopt the guys' lacrosse team, or whatever it is, whatever, your heart breaks for, going, I want to be their character coach. Another way you can get involved, if you got a small group, you can adopt a whole team and just go, man, I want to pour into this team. I want to bring them meals. I want to encourage them. I want to pray for them. Just want this season, I want their team to be adopted by our small group. Or the third way you can support FCA, honestly, just write a big fat check. I mean, they're a nonprofit. It's an amazing nonprofit. And you go, man, I can't do those other things, but man, I've got some extra discretionary funds. It's a wonderful organization. And maybe that's a field for you that you go, man, I need something new, something different. If that is you, after the service is over, go right up there to that table and go, hey, I'm interested. They'll get you information and go, hey, here's some opportunities for you. Maybe it's FCA, maybe it's your little league, maybe it's your kids' dance team, maybe it's your neighborhood, maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's your kids. But there's a field that God has for you. Lord, please open our eyes. Lord, please soften our hearts. And Lord, please put us to work with the people that you want us to minister to. Now, there's a couple in our church named Brett and Rachel. Brett runs a company, and they've got 4 kids, and they're as busy as can be. In this past season, Rachel took a step of faith and became a character coach for FCA. She doesn't have a sports background or athletic background, but just something tugged in her heart. Now, raising 4 kids and running companies, they're as busy as anybody, but man, this was just something that she took a step of faith way outside of her comfort zone. And God not only blessed the teams that she was a part of, but blessed her personally. And so we sat Rachel down with our media team. We just asked, hey, what is it like working with FCA? What is it like being a character coach? And you're about to hear her story, not just how it blessed the kids, but how it blessed her personally. And if something like this strikes a heartstring inside your heart, strikes a chord with you, man, walk outside those doors and going, okay, Lord, my eyes are open. Man, my heart has softened for this. Lord, please put me to work. Rachel did just that, stepped outside of her comfort zone, began to work with high school students. God not only changed them, but changed her. Watch this as she shares her story.
So the character coach is a volunteer, someone who comes alongside the coach of the team and the athletes and helps bridge the gap between the fundamentals of the sport that the coaches are teaching and preparing their athletes for competition, and then developing good character quality. So once a week I come to a practice, we'll say Monday afternoons, and I meet with the team for about 5 minutes before practice, and we have a specific character trait that we work on. So one week it was sacrifice. And so we talked about what it meant to sacrifice as an athlete, to sacrifice as a teammate. So a couple of weeks ago I was meeting with the tennis team, and the Monday that I met with them, we talked about sacrifice as a team. Well, that next Wednesday was the optional breakfast, and I was able to discuss sacrifice again, but this time as the ultimate sacrifice, who was Jesus Christ. One thing I want you to know about me is that I did not grow up playing sports. I do not have any real athletic training. I do love tennis, and so I actually volunteered to be the tennis character coach for the high school. But there was an immediate need for softball. Never played softball, I don't know anything about it. So I was asking a lot of questions, but that didn't matter. It didn't cause any kind of barrier. In fact, it made for a fun rapport between the athletes and I, because they would giggle a little bit when I would ask questions about why they were doing certain things. And so towards the end of the softball season, the girls were getting ready to go to the playoffs, and it was a very exciting time, and we had a really great last session with them at practice. So I told the girls I would really like to pray with you, but we're really not allowed to pray with you, so just know that I'm praying for you every day. One of the girls said, "You don't have to leave." And I said, "Okay." She goes, "We want you to pray with us." And so they invited me in that time, and then to pray with them. And one of the other girls said, "We don't care if you talk about God to us. We like it. We want you to." I just want to say that even if you're going through a season where you're struggling, or your faith is being tested, you feel like you're not equipped to serve, that God still wants us to serve Him even through the hard times. And that for me and for my family, FCA was that outlet for us to be able to serve when we were struggling with some different things in our life. And I believe with all my heart that through that service and being faithful to God and His ministry and this ministry, that helped me to be stronger and helped my faith to be stronger.